If you've ever had a relationship of any kind with a narcissist, there's a pretty good chance that at some point in the relationship, they've probably made you cry. And if you had the misfortune of crying in front of them, you probably learned very quickly that that only makes things worse, sometimes much worse. But why is this? In today's video, I'm going to explain several reasons why narcissists will punish you for your tears. Welcome to Looking Behind the Mirror, where we explore narcissism and take our lives back as we make sense out of nonsense. As a quick disclaimer, everything I say is based on my opinions and my personal experiences. I'm not a professional, and if you're really struggling, I encourage you to seek professional help. I am providing links below for you. Today's video is about a pretty specific phenomenon, so I'm going to try to explain exactly what I'm talking about. When I say that a narcissist punishes you for your tears, I'm talking about when their behavior will actually escalate, when they will actually get angry at you as you are crying, maybe start yelling and screaming at you and making you cry even harder, kind of doubling down on whatever it is they were doing. Maybe they made you cry by yelling and screaming at you, and when you start crying, they yell and scream worse, louder. Another way they can punish you for your tears is just to ridicule you, to minimize what you're talking about, to make fun of you, to tell you that you're being a drama queen, or to make jokes. Either way, if you're in a position where you're in enough pain that you've actually started crying, this just makes the situation worse. Being confronted by a narcissist's complete lack of empathy for you can be quite a shock to the system when you're already this upset. And I want to be specific about exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about your crying, because there are a million different reasons that we cry. In the scenario that I'm talking about in this video, I'm specifically talking about a situation in which the narcissist is the person that either frustrated you or hurt you or frightened you enough that it caused you to cry. And of course, I'm talking about a situation in which your tears are genuine, and they may possibly be some last-ditch desperate effort to communicate with someone with whom words have not worked. I mean, I could just as easily make a video about all the times that a narcissist cries in order to manipulate us or to make a big deal out of nothing. Or maybe sometimes it seems like the narcissist is truly upset over something that doesn't make any sense. This could get to be a very, very long video if I went into depth of all the different reasons that people cry. So that's why I want to make sure that I'm being really specific. This is when you genuinely are emotionally pushed to tears and the narcissist's behavior only escalates. And the purpose of this video is to help you understand how hopeless of a situation this really is, because I think in these very toxic relationships where we get desperate enough to where we think, maybe if I cry, maybe that'll get their attention. We can get stuck in this cycle for a long time, and this can do a lot more harm and damage as we continue all these desperate ways of trying to communicate with somebody that we can't communicate with. So as I explain the reasons that narcissists act this way, I hope that it can help some of you to let go of trying to communicate in this way and to really understand why it doesn't work. And also to understand that this could actually potentially be dangerous. Crying to a narcissist, specifically about something the narcissist has done, will only make the narcissist's behavior, whatever it was that they were doing, worse, which could potentially be dangerous. And before I go into these reasons, I hope it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, that if you're in a relationship where you've tried and tried and tried to communicate with somebody that's hurting you in this way, and even when you cry, their behavior actually gets worse, this is a relationship that, in my opinion, really can't be saved. When someone has this much disregard for your feelings and for how upset you are, when there's this much disconnect and a lack of empathy, This isn't something that's just going to fix itself. It's certainly not something that's going to get better if you just cry harder or try harder to express how hurt this person's made you. I think this comes from the assumption that this person that's supposed to love you is going to show you some mercy or back down if you just try hard enough to show them how badly they're hurting you. And this could go on for years. So I just hope that if any of you are stuck in that cycle, that this video can help you get out of it and stop trying to express yourself to someone that just doesn't care. The first reason I'm going to go over as to why a narcissist's behavior escalates when you cry is that they think you're faking. They're basically projecting. And if they're behaving in a way that they think is just fine and you start crying, they're going to just assume that you're faking, you're trying to manipulate them, you're trying to make them feel guilty, because that's what they would be doing, because they've probably done that to you. So when you start crying, they just assume that you're crying for the same reason that they would have cried. And I do believe that narcissists are capable of crying genuine tears in certain situations, but I think it's actually really hard to tell sometimes when they're actually upset and when they're just manipulating you. And I also think that when they truly are this upset, it's usually not for the reason that we assume that it would be. For instance, if a narcissist is crying because somebody broke up with them, we might assume that they're crying because they miss that person and they're brokenhearted, when really they're just crying because their ego has been so damaged and they feel so lost at having lost control of somebody that they may have been abusive towards. But either way, when they see you crying, they will project what they understand about crying onto you. And what they understand about crying is that it is a weapon to be used. It's a manipulative tool, and you're probably trying to trick them somehow, because narcissists always think that everybody's always trying to trick them. They have an extremely hard time trusting anybody, and that includes the emotions you're trying to express. They don't trust people to be honest about their emotions, because they certainly are never honest, even with themselves, about their emotions. So for them to trust that you genuinely feel the emotions that you are expressing is really quite a leap for them, because it's a foreign concept. And also, if they believe that you're trying to manipulate them by crying, this is also very insulting and is threatening to their ego, because now in their head, you must think they're stupid. You must think that they're just going to fall for this trick you're playing on them. So you must think you're smarter than them. And so they've got to put you back in your place if you think that's going to work on them. And that might be a reason that they actually get angry and start yelling more at you, because in their imagination, you think that you're going to pull one over on them and they'll show you. Now, another completely different reason that they might get upset or their behavior might escalate when you cry is that in their mind, you don't have the right to cry. And in fact, they think that you've actually got a lot of nerve to be complaining about whatever it is that they did, because in their mind, whatever it is they did to you, and it doesn't matter what it was, whatever they did, they had a good reason to do it. They were justified. You deserved it somehow. So if they were yelling and screaming at you and it made you cry, well, in their mind, they had a good reason to yell and scream at you. I mean, how do you expect them to feel when you left your shoes on the wrong side of the door after they pretended that they told you 1,000 times for the last 3 years to leave them on the other side of the door, even though they never did? But they know that you never listened to them anyway. So if you would just start listening to them, read their mind, and put the shoes on the right side of the door next time, maybe they wouldn't have to get so upset with you. And now you're crying? You're the one that never listens or pays attention to anything that they want. You're the one that is off doing your own thing, ignoring them and not taking care of their needs. You're making them feel bad, and now you're crying? Narcissists are always upset, and somehow it's always going to be your fault, no matter what you've done or haven't done. So when they're angry at you, they have to somehow twist it in their head as something that you really deserve. Because if they're yelling at you and then they have to acknowledge that maybe you don't deserve to be yelled at, now they got to figure out why they're yelling and why they're so upset. And they are never, ever going to do that. So when you start crying, it's just more aggravating to them. It's like, how dare you? You're the one that made me so upset, and now you want me to stop yelling at you? You're asking something of me now? The best analogy I can think of off the top of my head is if somebody stole $50 from you, and maybe this was somebody that you took into your house or you took care of them for a little bit or something, and they stole $50 from you, and then you found out where they put the $50, and you went and you got your $50 back and you confronted them with it. And then they started crying and they started saying like, I was gonna go out to the movies tonight with that $50. Now how am I gonna afford to go to the movies tonight? And they actually start bawling and crying in front of you. If you can kind of imagine the audacity that you would feel they have in a situation like that. That's kind of how the narcissist views you. Like, how dare you get upset after all the awful things you did? You're the bad guy here, not me. So don't cry to me about how I'm behaving, because you're the one that made me behave this way. And on top of this, they don't understand why you're crying. They really don't understand the feelings that you're feeling, because narcissists, they have very little empathy. But part of that is that they really just don't understand why you're upset. They don't experience the same types of emotions in relation to the same types of scenarios that most people do. So they're a little puzzled, if they ever gave it any thought, as to why you would be so upset or upset in the way that you are. So it just doesn't make any sense to them why you would be crying. And they also don't care. So don't fall into the trap of thinking that you can somehow explain this to them, because they don't care even harder than they don't understand. Another reason that a narcissist's behavior might escalate when you cry is that it doesn't fit their narrative. Narcissists have a little story in their head and a little pretty picture of exactly how they want to see themselves and their life. And you are like a prop in that play that they're putting on for themselves. So you're supposed to be doing and saying and acting in a way that they've already decided. And when you just start crying or getting emotional, that's not fitting the narrative. That's not what they've told you to do. That's not what they pictured you doing. That doesn't look right. That's not going to look good to other people. So that's going to make them agitated and angry when you're not playing the role that they have assigned to you. And of course, it's doubly irritating when you're not playing the role you're supposed to play. You're not making the faces and saying the things with the tone of voice that you're supposed to use. But also somehow you're asking something of them. You're bringing their behavior into this and trying to hold them accountable for something that they felt totally justified in doing. Which brings us to the next reason that narcissists might escalate their behavior when you cry, and that's that when you are crying to a narcissist because of the way that they are treating you or because of something they have done, you are asking something of them. It's kind of a desperate way to beg and plead with somebody to please be a little nicer, or please give me a break, or please stop doing this thing that is hurting me so much. I think it's pretty common when we're in this kind of a toxic, abusive relationship to just give up on words and get to a point where we're so overwhelmed emotionally that we just cry and we just hope maybe this person will finally see, like, they're hurting me. I can't take this anymore. Maybe they'll have some mercy on me. And this is just a way to just beg for some mercy. But of course, if the narcissist understands that at all they're hearing and seeing is that you're asking something of them. And of course, this is probably in a moment where the narcissist is already thinking that they're irritated with you. They're not irritated with you. Of course, They're probably not irritated with you. They're probably just irritated with life in general, and they're pretending that it's your fault. But in their imagination, from their perspective, you've already done all these awful, horrible things to them, and you've aggravated them to the end of their rope, and now you're asking them to back off. Now you're asking them to control their emotions. You're asking something of them. And narcissists really don't respond well to being asked for anything, especially in a scenario where they feel totally justified in the way that they're behaving. And I can't make a whole video about the way that narcissists can make us cry and how they react to it without pointing out that many times narcissists are actually enjoying this. And it's really not a sadism kind of thing. Narcissists that are sadistic are kind of their own animal. Narcissists are not necessarily sadistic, but even narcissists that are not sadistic can still get some pleasure out of your tears because, as I said earlier, they feel like you've done some awful thing to them. They wouldn't be so upset if you hadn't used the wrong brand of laundry detergent. It's your fault that they are behaving so badly. So when you start crying, well, you deserve that anyway. And on top of that, it makes them feel like they've got control over you. They like to feel like they have control over your emotions. And if they can make you cry, that makes them feel pretty important, pretty powerful that they have that kind of control over you. So it actually feeds their ego. And on top of that, they just revel in chaos. Narcissists are extremely bored people. So if they've got somebody getting all upset and crying in front of them, it's drama. It's something a little exciting to break the boredom. And they don't have any empathy for you, especially when they're upset with you. So it's just entertainment to them. And even if they get upset back, they're enjoying that themselves. They're really getting fed off of it. Their ego is getting fed off of it. And when they are yelling and screaming and insulting you, they might seem really upset and angry, and they are, but part of them is getting a real charge out of that, especially if the more they yell and scream at you, the more you cry, the more upset you get, because that just makes them feel more and more powerful, which really turns into this vicious cycle that just escalates because it makes them feel good to see how much power they have over somebody else. And so their behavior is just going to escalate, and they're just going to get more and more nasty because they're really getting something that they value out of it. And some of them will even develop a habit of picking fights just for this very reason. If they're bored or if they're feeling a little insecure, they will just do whatever they had to do last time to make you cry. And if you start crying again and you get in a big 3-hour fight over what brand of toothpaste you're gonna buy next week, it's just a win-win for them. Now they're not bored, they feel powerful, they've showed you who's boss, and all that. I think it's important to remember in this kind of a relationship, first of all, this kind of relationship is, in my opinion, just pure garbage. There's nothing salvageable. There's nothing worth this kind of pain, or there's no person that would treat you like this that would be worth this kind of treatment. I wish I could go back to my past self and just explain to that girl that this person's not worth it. I mean, do you really think that somebody that treats you like this is worth the pain that they're putting you in? Do you think that you're gonna wake up tomorrow and they're just suddenly gonna decide to be nice? How many more times are you going to end up crying to them, begging them for mercy before you understand that every time is never going to be the last time until you walk away from them? And these people just, they're not worth it. You're not getting anything out of this but more and more pain and frustration, and even a dangerous situation. When you get to a point where you feel like the only avenue you have is just to cry, to try to get through to somebody that just isn't listening and doesn't care, there's really nowhere else to go from there. That's the end of the rope. And it really should be the end of the road for a relationship like that. And I think it's really important to understand that when you're in a relationship with a narcissist and you get to this point, the narcissist is never going to respond to your tears by trying to make you feel better, because the narcissist does not have any empathy for you. And they especially don't have empathy for you when they are upset with you and you are, in a way, criticizing them by crying as a result of their behavior. There is no way a narcissist will ever look at a situation like this and let down their guard, let down their ego, take accountability for what they've done, and stop being so mean. This is a really toxic waste of time and energy. I know that for some of us, as we develop emotional maturity, we may have a bad habit of crying when we really should just be talking, especially if we're used to toxic relationships. But somebody that really truly cares about us is going to want us to explain in words what we want from them and how we feel about things. And they're actually going to be interested in hearing about us explain things that have hurt us or frustrated us somehow. And we shouldn't ever need to resort to crying in order to try to express ourselves or communicate with somebody that actually cares. And I hope that anybody listening to this video will find those people and be able to build healthy relationships with people that they don't need to cry in front of. They don't need to try to express themselves in these desperate ways. That you'll find somebody that you can just talk about your feelings to and actually have a conversation. If you're looking for a way to support my channel and you've been considering professional therapy, BetterHelp is offering 10% off of your first month of service if you sign up using the link below in my description. And if you sign up using the link below in my description, I will get a one-time commission, so that'll help me out and it'll help you out as well if that's something that you've been considering doing. I hope this helps. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and comment below any ideas you have for me for future videos. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like this video and would like to see more like it in the future. Until next time, thanks. Bye.